Hello, and I just want to welcome back. And this is a video regarding Photoshop, and this is a little bit of getting started. And we're going over some of the tools that are used for selection. But before starting, it depends upon how you want to view Photoshop and how you want it to behave, so you can customize it to your liking. But one thing I tell people who are new to Photoshop and like the way that other softwares are running, there is a multiple undo now, so you can use that as well as your history. Another thing that you may want to do is change the look of the layout, the color. So if you go to your preference, and if you're on a Mac computer, you click up here at Photoshop and go down to preference, and then you go to your settings. If you were on a PC, you will go under edit and then scroll down to the bottom to get to your preference. So that's the difference of where the preference is located for the Photoshop. So going to the preference in general settings, or you will see it is Command K, and for PC it's the same. It is Control K. Same letter, but a different key. The interface changes how dark it is to how light you want it to work. This is kind of like the old way of Photoshop, and this is the new setting that came out right when they started to revamp Batman. So I call it the Dark Knight Returns color mode. So I'm used to the old school, brighter, lighter color. Another thing I like about that they added to Photoshop is your performance. So if you click on performance, you can adjust your memory, which has been around for a while. But the favorite thing I love is you can change your history setting. So your history setting is usually at 50, but you can push it all the way up to 1,000. So you can do that as well. But that's pretty extreme. So I say Illustrator is like 99. So Illustrator has 99 undos, but you may have more than 99 problems. So, because there's so many options in Photoshop. So I say a good setting will be 350. So you can try that and see how that works. I'm going to say okay. And that is getting your performance and your interface setting set up. Next, I'm going to show you how to modify the toolbar before you start working. This is the history window, and the history window allows you to do multiple undos. So if you were working on a project and you want to undo it, it keeps a record of every step you take and all the tool functions. So if you're using the eraser, moving an image, pasting an image, selecting an image, and copying, it keeps a record of the actions that you do. So there is Control Z or Command Z, and to move forward is Command Shift Z. And you can go forward in your history as well, back to where you stopped. So now we're going to go to the toolbar. The toolbar is on your tools that you can use to modify an image, color an image, change an image, copy an image, select, and also add text. So this is the long strip right here, and it's pretty simple, but this doesn't completely show all your tools well to me. So I prefer clicking on the arrow up here and doing a 2-column toolbar, which also gives you a larger display of your colors, default, and your screen modes that you can do. So clicking here, you can see your different screen modes, which I will talk about later. So I'm leaving it at standard. So that is setting it up. If by chance you are missing any icons, this lets you click here and add the toolbar, and you can add any missing tools. So if something's missing or you want to reset it, choose edit, and then over here you'll see there's extra tools. I do want the magnetic lasso, don't care about that one. Perspective crop, yes. Rulers will be helpful. Healing brush. So what you can do is go over here and restore defaults. And when you press that, everything that was over here in the extra tools is now added to your toolbar. So now you do have all the other tools that you need. So you will have your ruler, you have your perspective crop, which is also along with the regular crop tool. You have your magnetic lasso, and you have your healing brush. And then you just say done. If you change your mind on something that you don't need, like the red eye tool, you can always drag it out and put it back over here, and that will change the layout over here. So if you don't need it, you can just pull it away. If you're using the clone stamp, my old school dodge and burn, I don't use as much, but I'm going to leave there. So I'm going to say done. And now I have my new toolbar. And I'm good to go for that. My layout under Windows, under Workspace, I am using painting, but there's other ones, essentials, photography for photography, motion. Now you got motion graphics, 3D, and web design. So I'm using painting because that will give me a workspace where I will have my colors, my swatches, my navigator, so I can zoom in and move about my screen without scrolling. And it allows you to see that. You also have your history chat, your history window where you can keep track of your history. And then you have your brushes that shows your brushes over here and the various brushes, which I'll go over. And then down at the bottom, you have your layers and your layer window. So this is set up for anyone, and you have your brush settings because you're painting, you're using special brushes, different style brushes, and different textures. But I like it because it has a navigator, has the swatches, and the control for the brush. So that is getting your Photoshop set up, getting your toolbar ready, getting your workspace together, and then you can start building your design. And a good practice is selecting. And I'm going to go over the selection tools and show you how to select a object and which one will work best for you. So now that we have set up our Photoshop, I'm going to go over selecting objects to build your own theme page or a backdrop for your virtual Zoom room or just a unique screensaver for your phone. So for people using it for image concepts and collages, this is what you usually do. So getting some images from the web, if you're using a browser and you're doing a search for a specific image, I have did a search for some images of the moon. I'm looking to see if I see anything that looks clean enough and has a good design that I can fully see the moon and I can use it for my layout. So this one seems like a very good one. And I'm looking at the size here and it tells me is 1900 pixels by 1200 pixels. So sometimes I will save it from here, but if you can, open it in a new tab. That way, hopefully you'll see the full image. And right now, this one, like I said, is opening up in another website. So I'm going to close this. So I'm going to see if I could save this image from here. You may want to title it so you can find it again, but it already says Blue Moon. So I'm saving that. So I'm going to save it to a folder to use in Photoshop. So I'm going to open it now and retrieve that file. There it is. And from the look of it, it looks like it's pretty big. So under image, you can always check your image size. And it is. It's 27 inches wide by 17 inches high. So the resolution is at 72. And the resolution is always set for the web. So it's always going to be 72. Sometimes you may see some that are 150 or 300. So I'm going to say okay. So that means that when I put this image into my layout, it will be the right size. So I'm going to start building my layout. First thing I like to do is make a new document. And when I make a new document, I go to print and you could do letter, but for this project I'm gonna do tabloid 11 by 17 and I'm gonna change the orientation so it's 17 inches and 11 inches tall, and my resolution I'm gonna change that down to 150. For this project is 150 is fine, but if you're using it to print on a beautiful photo print glossy paper, anything you're working at, I recommend 300. But for now, if you're using it for a virtual background for your Zoom, 150 is fine because it's going to be turned into a JPEG regardless. The background is usually white, but I'm going to click here, go to transparent, because I want to put something as my own background. and having a white background is okay. So I'm going to create. If you notice, it's checkerboard. That means in Photoshop, that means it's transparent. So let's get some images. I have the moon, but I also have Saturn. I have a space image, which I'm going to use as my background to my layout. So to get this, you can either select using the rectangle marquee to select, and you could either select a little bit of it, or you can select the whole thing. So starting from one corner, dragging down to the other corner. Another way you can select is also go to select and say select all. And that way you can select the whole image. I'm going to say edit and copy. Now I'm going to go back to my layout, and then I'm going to say edit and paste, which is Control V. So here it is, and as you can notice, it's not filling in the space. So I'm going to transform and scale. And I'm just going to scale it out to fill in my tabloid. And you can check it off here when you're done. So up there in the corner is a check mark, or you can hit the enter key. So you can even do that. I'm going to do that as well. So I'm just going to do like this, rescale it again, hit the return key or enter, and then I'm done. Now that we have our background for our Zoom virtual background, I'm going to bring in some more design elements. So let's pick something that's a simple shape as a circle. That is the blue moon. So you can use the elliptical marquee tool, and you can drag across, open up a circle to surround the moon, and then you can modify that selection. So I'm going to zoom in to show how it's fitting around the moon, and I'm going to transform that selection. So I'm going to right click, go down to transform selection, and now you have a bounding box to transform the circle. So what I'm going to do is place the rectangle and fit it tightly around the moon. That way I will have a good selection and a very tight fit. And that way I'm not picking up any of the dark space surrounding it. Once I have that, you hit enter, you approve that, and you can just basically copy it. So if you do cut, You see you got a clean cut. I'm going to undo that. And now going to your layout, I'm going to go to paste. And I'm going to move it over here. And I'm going to do some little modifying. I'm going to make it smaller. And that is set in the space I need it. And then I'm going to go get another design element. So I'm going to exit out of this. Don't save. And now I'm going to go to my space. Don't need that one. Now I'll pick something a little bit more complicated. So the planet Saturn. Same thing, there's a circle. So I'm going to use a combination of selection tools. Using the marquee, I'm going to use the quick selection, but there is another software that is inside the quick selection and the magic wand, and it's called object selection. So if you haven't updated your Photoshop, you may not see this. So this is new for 2020. So it is really fast and it's pretty accurate. So I'm going to demonstrate that. So you have two modes of selecting. You can do rectangle or lasso. So since this is a ring shape, I'm going to use the lasso. And I'm going to lasso around Saturn. So I'm going to go around. Let it think about it. And there you have it. You can see the selection. So what I'm going to do is add a little more of that shadow. So I'm going to now switch to my other selection tool, which is the lasso. I'm going to use the polygon because the polygon lets you make pretty precise shapes that you need. So I'm selecting that and I'm going to go up to make sure I'm telling the lasso to add to my selection and not start a brand new one. This one is removing parts of it, and this is intersecting or punching a hole. So I need to add, and if you're familiar with Illustrator, these icons pretty much look the same. So I'm going to start here, click right on the edge of that ring, follow across, and then I circle around to capture, and then I'm going to close it off. And just like in Illustrator, like you're drawing a path, you'll see a plus, and you close it off. And if you want to be clean about it, and you say, I don't want that little extra bump there, I can go back up, say minus, follow along, surround what you don't want, capture it. I'm going to cut across just along the edge of the ring and remove that. So now that I have my Saturn, I'm going to copy, go to my layout, and paste. And I'm going to do a little rotation. I'll rotate it around and resize this. And hit enter and set it down. Now another one that I'm going to show is a little bit more complicated. And I'm going to pick up this tree. So I have it selected already, but I'm going to restart it and deselect it. So pressing Control or Command D deselects. Now I'm going to use another selection tool. This one is called the Quick Selection. It's like a paintbrush that has marching ants. And I'm going to switch later to the magic wand. So the Quick Selection, I'm going to select the image by painting over what I need. So this circle is way too big. So up here in the top corner, it's at 45. I'm going to bring it down to 19. And actually, that's still too big. I'm going to go down to 11. So I'm going to show you just by swiping across the deer. It picked it up. We'll go across the ground, capturing that, the green. And as you can see, it's picking up by color, and it starts to detect where you're dragging to and the color you're also wanting to add. So now there's a great little feature. Pressing the bracket key next to the letter P makes it smaller. And pressing the other bracket key on the right makes it larger. So this lets you fine tune your selection and get more detail. So going around, I have selected the rest of the tree, and getting small parts will take a little bit of more finesse and patience. So I'm just going over it, swiping now with the quick selection. And if you wanted to remove parts that you don't want to see, like the sky between the branches, you have to be very gentle with your quick selection and don't let it deselect too much. So this is a tricky part of removing something that you don't want to copy. So it takes time, and sometimes you may lose what you want to keep, and you just have to come back and recapture parts of the image. So when I try to remove some parts of the sky, the branches are light color like the sky, so it's possible that you would lose a little bit of it, and you just have to go back and clean it up like this right here is easy because it's a dark brown against the light color. Then I'll have to touch up the antlers, which takes a little bit more time. And then here too, this is pretty good because you got a beige and a light blue color and green. So you have good contrast. When it's a light contrast, you will have a little bit more issue to it. So I'm going to stop here and copy it. And I see one other spot. Zooming in really quick with a shortcut key as you're working. If you hold down Control and the spacebar, you get a zoom. If you do Control, spacebar, and Alt, you can zoom out. So I just see parts that did not get selected. So I'm going to stop there, copy this, go to my layout, and paste. And I'm going to transform and scale, or free transform, Control T. But if you use the move arrow, you get the transform control. So I'm going to scale this up to fill in top to bottom and enter. So now you pretty much get your layout going, and this is where you start to figure out where things are starting to fit. How do you want these items to look? I always hit enter because I was trying to pick up Saturn, and it was stopping me from picking up Saturn. And see, that's why I spent all that time trying to remove it, because I want to make sure Saturn shows up behind the tree. So getting that layout together takes time. So before I finish up, I want to show another little thing with modifications. Zooming in, I'm going to turn off the tree, Saturn, and the moon, leaving my background space. But also, while you're working, make sure to go File, and I should have done this earlier, Save As, and then you can save it and save it to your computer, just so that nothing happens while you're working that you lose your file. So that's very important to save it. So I'm just going to say virtual background. Photoshop is perfect because Photoshop has layers. The other file that has layers is large format, Photoshop EPS, Photoshop PDF, and then you have down here TIFF. So those carry layers. And I don't know, Photoshop Raw may carry layers. Nope, it's not staying. It's checked off. But if you do Photoshop PDF, you do have your layers. If you go to TIFF, same thing. You do have layers. So I'm just going to leave it as a Photoshop. But when I'm done, I will save it as a JPEG. Well, right now I still want my layers because I may want to move stuff around. So I'm going to hit save. You will see this means that you're saving to the newest Photoshop, and other Photoshops may have problems, but it's okay. So what I want to do is copy a little bit of the clouds, make a larger selection, and if things are not copying the way you want, check and see if you're on the right layer. So I'm on the right layer. If you were on the layer with the moon and you kept going like that, you'll see it's copying, but it's picking up the moon. So I'm going to stop that, go here, and redo it. So I'm going to deselect, start over. So I'm just going to swipe along the clouds, not the whole thing, just a little bit of colors, because I'm going to use it as a layer of clouds. So I don't want this, so I'm going to press down the Alt, do minus the purple, and I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to copy and paste. So I have a second one. Now let's see how hard it is. I want to make it look softer and fading. So I'm going to use the eraser. So I'm going to go to the eraser, regular eraser tool. That's a big circle, a little bit too big. So that's 400. I'm going to go down to 300 or 250. And I'm going to do zero hardness. That way I get a soft edge. You go to 100, you get a hard edge, which basically cuts into your design. So I don't want that. I'm going to go here, give it zero hardness. So when I erase, it's erasing very softly. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Go to 300. And also, another thing I could tell it to do is not erase 100% of it, maybe 60% pixels, or maybe even less, because I want it to be really soft. You'll still see the edge. And I'm using a Wacom tablet, so it's very pressure sensitive. It behaves really sensitive compared to a mouse. And all this erasing is good, but then you're not sure about the effects. So what I'm going to do is take this, I'm going to bring it up above Saturn, and wait till that area turns blue. Then I let go. So now it's above that. So let's turn on everything and see how it's coming along. So the moon is completely gone. So what I'm going to do is erase and see it's exposing very lightly the moon. And I'm going to bring Saturn down, going to the Move tool, letter V, just like an illustrator. See how that floats in. So I'm going to go now. Make sure you're on the right layer because you don't want to erase Saturn. Go to your eraser, letter E, and then make it look like smoke and very translucent. Turning on my tree. There you have it. You have your background. And if you're happy with where you are, you can stop there or then say, you know what, I want to move stuff. So this is why you have to keep the layers active. So I'll put that here. I'm going to move this up higher. Move the moon up. And I'm going to have to erase. Because if you notice the bottom half of the clouds. So I'm going to erase to make that blend in better. The moon and move it up. And smooth that away. Move my layers back. Lock it into place. So there you go. Now, if you're looking at stuff and you want to see your complete image without the panels and all the toolbars and distractions, press the letter T for the tab. Press the tab key, and you can see your artwork. Also, here in the corner, we have different full screen view. You can always press and go back to the regular screen mode. So there's three of them: standard, full screen with menu bar, and then full screen without anything. And hit tab again, come back, bring all my tools back, and then go back to standard. Okay, so that is a lesson in selecting, a little bit of layer composition, and the tools to select, and a little bit about eraser tool. So those are some wonderful features. Another feature is you can take this layer of clouds and switch it from normal to maybe multiply, or do a screen instead. Makes it lighter, overlay. You get random results. Some results may not be what you want. So you can do an overlay or lighten, and then you can go to the moon and even blend that into the image. So there's overlay for the moon. And you could even lower the opacity to make it look even more faded. So those are different settings and opacities. You could even do that with Saturn. And it changes the look of it. So now you have a brighter planet compared to the normal. And like I said, sometimes these will give you unexpected results, like color dodge, and it may work with what you want. Okay, thank you for watching. Have fun.